Hi everyone, welcome to the 20th lecture of Ansible series, and in this lecture we will try to focus on blocks, rescue and how to do an error handling. Now this is another important concept which I wanted to cover up as part of the Ansible series, because while doing the playbook programming, while you write a playbook and if you are performing a multiple operations within your playbook, then block, rescue and error handling will help you to understand whether one of my task is failing, or let's say if I know like my first task will fail but I have to continue with my playbook, then yes, there are like options to do that. So let's look at the concept one by one and I will show you how these are like different and how these can combine in a one playbook that you can use. So starting with blocks. So blocks are the logical group of tasks, right? For example, if you want to install Apache, then if you want to install Git, then you want to install some other version, then start. So within the task, we are performing multiple set of operations. What we can do, let's say if we are doing the same task again and again, then we can create a block of that particular concept within the task and run each of the installation or the operation within that block. So that's what the creating of logical grouping of tasks means. Blocks are also ways to handle the task error similar to the exception handling in many programming languages. So if you are from the development background, you must know about the error handling concept where we do try, catch, exception, right? And finally, so all these concept comes into picture. The same concept is over here as well within Ansible, but again, we have a different naming convention: block, rescue and always, right? Always is kind of a finally in Python or in Java, as a matter of fact. Ansible stops the playbook execution when task fails and we choose to ignore error to continue with remaining tasks. So for example, you are installing Apache, you are then installing Git, then you are starting Apache, and then you are performing some other task. But you know, like my one of my task might fail. Let's say Apache will fail because I'm running yum install Apache and I'm running against the Ubuntu server. It will be going to fail. And in next task, I'm installing apt-get git install, right? Apt-get git installation of the git. That syntax is correct for the Ubuntu family. But the first part, yum install, is not a correct syntax for installing an Apache on Ubuntu family. So that task will fail. So what Ansible will do, it will stop first pointer at the first pointer itself, because it is not able to perform that task, and rest of the task will be going to skip right away. It will not go beyond that particular first task. So in that case, we can choose, or we can create something called ignore errors, and it will still continue to perform whatever you have written in your playbook. So that's what ignoring of error within the block means, and it helps a lot, trust me. Rescue blocks specify the task to run when an earlier task in the block fails. So as again coming back to the programming language background, if you are doing try, catch, exception, then the exception block will only execute if try block is failing. If it passed out, let's say if try has been executed successfully, then the exception block will not going to execute, right? So that's what rescue block over here is. This approach is similar to exception handling in many programming language. Ansible only runs the rescue block after a task failed happened. Bad task definitions or unreachable host will not trigger the rescue blocks. Understand this. If your host is not reachable, if your task definition is not correct, the rescue block will not going to work, or it will not going to get triggered. It will only get triggered if your task section, the block section of operation, will fail. You can also add always section to the block. The task in always section run no matter what the status of the task in the previous block is. So the structure looks like block, then rescue, then always. Always will get every time executed regardless of you're failing with the block section, you're failing with the rescue section, right? So that's what block, rescue, and obviously if you combine all these three, it the concept combination equals to error handling. We can handle the errors within these section of our playbook. So that's the conceptual part of block rescue and error handling. Now I have written a simple playbook where, as you can see, it's a web server, and what I am trying to do, I'm just using a command doing an ls within my Ansible directory, and I'm just registering an output as Ansible underscore out and printing that variable. So as part of our last lecture, if you remember, we have used debug module with message parameter, variable parameter, and verbosity. In this example, I'm using variable parameter where I'm just printing out the variable right away instead of writing any sort of messages. Now in second operation, basically in the task I'm performing multiple operation. In second, I'm again using command ls hc ansible2 and registering that and printing that variable out. Now within my managed node, I have only one version of Ansible installed. So obviously this will be going to fail. Now if I run this right away, this will be going to fail after performing this set of operation. The first part of operation will give us the result. The second part of operation will fail, and it will not go to the third part where I'm trying to list out all the files, directories within etc. Right? So how can we make it like, let's say I want to run the entire playbook. I want to ignore the error because I know at certain point of time one of the tasks might fail. So I want to ignore that. What I can do, I can use something called ignore errors equals to yes. So if I do ignore error in each of the section, in this section, in this section, in this section, regardless of whether the task fail or pass, obviously if it fails, then it will going to ignore error, and my task execution of the playbook will be going to happen from first line to the last line written in the playbook. How to do that? Let's stop our presentation and we'll navigate to our terminal. That's our controller engine, and as part of this demo, let's create a new file, block.yml. Let's do a quick write-up over here. Okay, host. Now here I'm going to use localhost because Ansible is only installed on my controller engine, so I just want to take the data from there. tasks task. Okay, perform the task. Here let's use command and ls. We know it is installed in Ansible folder. Then register the output. You can use register command. So for that, let's say Ansible command, Ansible underscore out, and we'll use debug just to print out the variable. If you're not aware of the debug module, then please watch my previous videos so that you will get a clear picture. Debug, and here I'm going to use var as a variable is equals to Ansible out. Okay, let's use another operation, command, and this is where we know that it will fail because I'm using etc Ansible 2. We don't have anything etc Ansible 2 over here. Okay, again register, that would be Ansible underscore out 2. Use the debug to print debug var equals to Ansible underscore out 2. Perfect. And the third operation, just I want to show you, where like once Ansible stopped, then it will obviously it will, if it checks whether the operation is failing, it will not go to the third line or the third operation or fourth operation, whatever you have written in your playbook. So here a simple one again. Let's do ls from etc register. Let's do etc out and debug to print. I'll share the documentation as well, what we have from the Ansible documentation, so don't worry about this one.
etc underscore out. Perfect. Let's save it. Ansible playbook, Ansible, yep, playbook, and let's call our new file. Let's see, it's gathering the fact, and as you can see, with the help of debug and obviously registering the ls and everything, we are getting all the three files: configuration, and this is another file I have, host, and the roles directory. But the second one is failed and the third task was never executed. Okay, now let's say if you want to ignore and you want to get everything executed within your Ansible playbook, right? So for that, there are like two ways to do it. Again, let's do a quick edit to our file. We know it's failing at the second one because we don't have anything at Ansible 2, something called Ansible 2 as of now. So for that, what you can do, you can give ignore errors, yes, okay, which is basically at all these indentation level. I believe I don't have to put, but I don't remember the exact syntax, but let's see. It failed. Okay, so let me check again, and here what we will be going to do, one sec, edit, let's use here, enter, gathering a fact. Now the entire Ansible playbook has been executed. As you can see, we are getting everything from etc, right, within etc. And if you see the second task, it says ignoring, because we have mentioned explicitly like ignore the error on that particular task. Now what you can do, let's say if you don't know where it will be going to fail, then you can have ignore error at all the lines, right? On this operation as well, on this operation as well, right? So for example, what I'm talking about, let me show you. I'm talking about something like this. Come on. So as part of the command, you can use ignore errors, EEORS, errors, yes, over here, copy, and yes, you can do that here as well. So again, let's say if you're writing hundreds line, right, 100 line in your playbook, and everywhere you don't want to mention this one this way, this is not a good practice, right? And that's where we take help from block. Block will help us to reduce the number of lines within our playbook. Like instead of writing ignore error at each operation, we can write only once, and we can club all the tasks into one block to perform that set of operation. How to do that? Let me show you. So for that, what we have to do, inside task, what I'm going to do, I'll write something called block, okay, and each operation, as you can see, it has to perform inside the block. So that's why the command, then debug and everything is under block section. Okay, now instead of having ignore error at each place, I'm going to define ignore error at block level. So in that case, I don't have to write at each operation as I mentioned. So it has to be parallel to the block. So let me copy this one, copy, come on, and here let's remove, okay, enter, 1 2 3 4, I believe, yes, ignore error, PL, one sec, I guess there should be one more space for this one. Let's run this. Let's see the response. Gathering a fact. Now, it still ignored the second line as basically the second operation, ignoring, but it never stopped. So which means you can use block this way in order to run your entire playbook, all set of operations, whatever you are getting inside your playbook. Now let me go back to my presentation. This is something we performed, and that was the block section that we perform again. Within the block, all set of operations defined and ignore error at block level. Okay. Now, our next slide is basically using the rescue part. Now, rescue, as I mentioned, it will only get executed if your block section will fail. If it is not failed, let's say if block is executed successfully, then rescue will not going to execute, because there is a definition by itself in a error handling concept. If try is executed successfully, the exception will not going to get executed, right? The same way we have block, rescue, always. You can also use finally as per best of my memory, but yeah, always, I guess it's a new module, but yeah, we can also use finally, and we'll check that. So if block fails, rescue will work. Always is basically always execute, right? If if rescue it's not getting executed, it's only block is executed, we can also execute always. How to do that? Let's navigate to our terminal again. Now what we have to do, and as you can see, block level we have rescue. So just make sure, then only Ansible will understand that this is part of the block rescue section within error handling. Okay, let's go back over here, block.yml. Let me remove something from here. Okay, you know what, let me show you first something. Let's have this as it is inside block, not inside, basically the parallel to block. I'm using rescue, and here I'm going to use just we can use a debug message, right? Debug msg, and within msg I'm writing this is my rescue section. Okay, done. Save it. Let's see, because we already have error handling, ignore error kind of stuff created. So as you can see, we are not getting an message, the statement that what we have written in the rescue section. So let's go back to our YAML file again, and let me remove this line. So once my try section, basically the block section fails, I will see the rescue part. Okay, so there is no ignoring of error will be going to happen, so my playbook should fail. As you can see, the second part is failed, the first part get executed, because that was the first intention of the statement, the block statement, that hey, first execution was getting the path of Ansible directory and everything. Yes, we are getting it. Second, Ansible 2 is not there in my directory, so yes, it failed. And as you can see, this is my rescue section. The rescue section has been executed, and here we are seeing rescued is equal to 1, which means the logic is working over here. If your first part is failing, I'm getting response from the second part. So whatever operation you are doing in the second part, you will get it even if first part fail. Now, the last thing which I want to play around over here is always. Let's try to do that. Again, it's parallel to rescue. ALWAYS, always. Again, we'll use the same debug message. Debug. Here, sorry, MSG equals to, this is always getting executed. Save it. Let's see. Now, obviously the block will fail because it's failing. We don't have a ignore error concept listed over there. As you can see, this is my rescue section because first part got failed, and this is my always section, which is also getting us a response. So even if your first or second failed, always will get executed every time. And one last thing over here which I want to test is finally, that word keyword finally is working or not. So let me do that as well. As per the documentation, it's always, but let's see if finally works or not. Let's execute the playbook. No, we don't have a finally word. Finally or final, something like that it was there. Let me try one more time. Should be not. Yeah, it's not. So it's only always the keyword that you have to use. So let me edit, and I'll show you in the documentation as well. It's mentioned as always. So let's execute this, and we are getting a response from always and rescue section. Perfect. So that's how that's how the block, rescue, and the always section work, and the error handling works in general with Ansible. Now here is the documentation that what we have from the Ansible side. We have something called blocks, grouping, error handling, and a lot of examples are written over here. Like within the block section, install httpd and memcache. Then we are installing with the help of yum. Okay, there is a condition over here, getting a sudo privilege, and what is the user that we are trying to use, and ignoring error over here. So that's how we do as part of ignoring a error. If let's say memcache fail, still it will show you the response. Now handling error with a block, as I showed you, block, if it failed then only the rescue operation will work. If it passed, then rescue operation will not work. And there is something called always section. This always gets executed. You can also add an always section to the block. Task in always section runs no matter what is the status of your previous task. Now with the help of block, rescue, and always, you can use this way as well. So I hope this clears a lot in terms of the conceptual part of block, rescue, always, error handling in general. So try out with your environment. I'll share this documentation as well in the description section. Place out a comment in comment section. If you're facing any issue, I'll be there to help you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.